I found some paperwork from the therapist that I saw from 13 to 17, and I thought I would read some of it, kind of to process myself some, but also just because I think stuff like this is interesting. I'm nosy, so I'll let you be nosy about my life, I guess. A little bit of a backstory. How I ended up seeing a therapist at 13 was when I was in eighth grade. I had a teacher become concerned. I had had other teachers ask me things on occasion, as they had noted that I had like quotes or lyrics written on some of like my folders and things like that that they had seen at school. But for all of the others who had said something, it was like, man, that's dark or something like that. And it's like, oh, it's just a song, and they would let it go at that. In eighth grade, I bumped up against a teacher who I tried giving that line to, and he was like, okay, but why do you like it? And I just kind of like froze, and he convinced me to go talk to the school counselor. The school counselor I had never spoken to before, but was like really effective at like disarming me. It was like unsettling to me, like how quickly I opened up to the school counselor. And I'm pretty sure I just talked to the school counselor that one time, but he was concerned enough that he called my mom and was like, your kid needs like an actual therapist, more than what school counseling can do. This was happening in like May of my eighth grade year, and so we were about to not even be in school. Thankfully, in this particular case at least, my mom does seem to like really value authority figures. A professional from the school saying like, your kid needs help was enough that she signed me up. She found me a therapist. She did, like, we split an intake session. Like, she talked to the therapist, I talked to the therapist. And then for 4 years after that, I continued to see the therapist. She never came into session or like talked to him on the phone or emailed with him or really anything beyond that. At one point, he had told me that it was odd to have a teen client who had parents who didn't try to really get involved at all. I think he was trying to kind of let me see my mom's avoidance, I guess. That it was way more common as a therapist for teenagers to have to really set harsh boundaries with parents who try to be overly involved. And kind of the opposite was true with my family. So from the intake session, it says 13-year-old female struggling with self-destructive, I can't read the word after that, I assume impulses or something like that, and at times acting out on them. Spent first 40 minutes with mom, last 25 with Emily, and will follow up with Emmy on Friday. There's a section that says chief complaint by patient or by others present. It said Emily sent a worrisome letter to her stepbrother who contacted mom. She discussed the fact that she is cutting and that something inappropriate had happened with her stepbrother. So I have multiple stepbrothers. And that is true. I had talked to one of my stepbrothers. What I think is interesting is I'm like 90% sure that this didn't really have anything to do with how I ended up in therapy. I'm pretty sure there was a fairly significant time gap between when I had opened up to my stepbrother and this happening. Like 6 months at least, maybe a year. I had no idea that my stepbrother had shared anything that I said with my mom. Got it pushed into therapy because of the school getting concerned. History of problems, has recently started cutting in her thigh, and that's not true. I was at least a year into this, maybe more like 2. Something I find really confusing is this says Emily is able to, I don't know, there's something I can't read, something the first time, disclose that at the age of 7, her brother, actually technically a stepbrother, touched her inappropriately. She will diverge more next session. Again, I'm like 99% positive I did not divulge that in the first session. Like, no way. But the way this is written makes it seem like I told him that. I really don't think so. Current significant symptoms, depressed mood, and there's like a whole bunch of options that are listed, but some of them are circled. It says depressed mood, grief, worthlessness at times, decreased energy, guilt, anxiety, panic attacks, irritability, emotional trauma victim, and sexual trauma victim. That's really interesting because I definitely would not have seen myself as an emotional trauma victim at that time, and he clocked that in the first session. The section that says maladaptive or high risk behaviors, it says very closed, feels deep and cries but doesn't talk about her feelings, is cutting herself. The section that says childhood and adolescence, I don't fully understand what this means. It says mom, dad, stepdad, and bio sister who is 16. I have way more family than that. Some clashes with her sister, which that's really odd because I've never really had meaningful clashes with any of my sisters. I don't know what that means. Like, I'm sure, like, as we were both teenagers, I'm sure we, like, bickered a little bit, but nothing worth mentioning there, in my opinion. Says continue to assess. It just says abuse. It says big argument with her stepdad. And then at 3, her parents divorced. I don't really know what that argument would have been about at this point. I do remember when my mom found out I was cutting, and I don't remember if that was through my brother or I had also told my sister-in-law. I kind of thought my sister-in-law had told my mom, but maybe it was my stepbrother. I don't know. But then my stepdad just like screamed at me for cutting myself. So maybe that was the big argument that was being referenced here. There was a big blow up after he found out about the molestation, but he did not know that at this time. There's a line that says adult significant relationships or object loss. It just says poor boundaries, and it's underlined, which I would love to know what that was in reference to, especially because I was 13 here, so clearly I was still a child, so I don't know if that means that that's like referencing my family or my parents. This next paper says it was that I was first seen on the date of what I just read, but then it says that the full assessment was completed 3 days later. So I think we saw him twice in that first week, and then this was after that. Treatment plan. He diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder. This was new to me because I didn't know I had PTSD for like a few months after this, after he sent me to a psychiatrist for diagnosis. He also wrote rule out ADHD and major depression, so I'm thinking he was suspecting both of those in me already after just 2 sessions with me, or really like 1.5 with me and half of a session with my mom. Target symptoms, it says decrease self-mutilation, to work on beginning to express myself and increase my coping strategies. There's a treatment plan section. It says 1, I want help but don't want parents to know everything. Number 2 says my mom wants me to find more ways to express myself, and then there's something in quotes, so I think this is probably like an exact statement she made. It says I can't help or fix it if I don't know. Which that kind of got me when I first read it. That really is so symbolic of my mom, in my opinion. I just don't know what to do if you don't talk to me. My perception of my mom is that she lives her life with blinders on, but I guess like doesn't realize that or take responsibility for that or something. And then it's like, well, I just didn't know. It's like, because you're walking around with blinders on. Like, I think another great example of that is like, here it sounds like she wants me to open up to her so that she can help me, and that I'm just like not letting her in, which like I definitely wasn't letting her in, like, don't get me wrong, but she never like tried to like get involved or like ask me how my therapy was going or like anything. She never tried to get me to open up. And also, at the same time, if she did, I probably wouldn't have, because she had proven to me that she wasn't trustworthy in like the rare instances that I had tried to share, or like felt like I couldn't help but share certain things with her. So the whole like I want to help thing just isn't true. So yeah, that's just frustrating to think of myself being like 13 and her saying that and then doing nothing, not trying to ask me how I'm doing, not being involved with my mental health whatsoever, other than literally driving me to therapy, which is a lot. This guy helped me a ton, so I am very grateful for that. I don't mean to minimize that, but she didn't want to be really involved herself. Number 3 says we'll meet 2 times this week to discuss the past of abuse. So I guess this part was written on the very first session even. 4 says work to shore up her coping strategies. It says how has she hurt herself since 7, which that's interesting because I did self-harm in other ways from around the age of 7. I don't know if I told him that right away, or I don't remember that. I can't imagine being that vulnerable that quick, but maybe I did. I don't know how else he would have known that. It says, how has she perceived what this event means? And that would be in reference to the molestation. That again, I didn't know he knew about that at this phase. Number 5. She feels mom knows nothing about her. Assessment coming. Number 6 says, help her reach a point to tell someone in her family about what happened. Again, I think this is related to sexual abuse. And what we need to do. As when she remembered at 10, which I never really forgot what happened, but when I was 10, at least in my school, you get taught about like puberty and stuff like that in school a little bit. And as part of that, they explained like the basics of like consensual touch and non-consensual touch, and that like non-consensual touch can be labeled as molestation or rape. That experience of being in that class and like learning what molestation meant and realizing that that was that weird and icky thing that had happened to me, like there's a word for this is a thing that has a word for it, felt like somebody smacking me in the face with a cast iron skillet. So that was a big moment of realization, even though I had never really forgotten, if that makes sense. After I remembered at 10 and really knew what it was, she stopped church, stopped trusting mom, and then it just says civil with dad. This next page is the second visit, so just 3 days after the intake. Summary says, poor boundaries throughout the family. Emily struggles with not just the abuse, which she's not yet ready to discuss, but a series of events and miscommunications. Her stepdad, whom she doesn't like, has since 10 has made a lot of unnecessary and to Emily degrading comments about her body. He doesn't know of his son molesting her. Son was 13, Emily was 6. I think that's about a year off. For some reason, her family struggles with discussions about Emily. They don't talk to her, just about her. A part just says a lot of trauma played out in different ways, working on trust and coping strategies. This is my 3rd session with this therapist. There's a note here that I have a long history of self-harm, which obviously contradicts the other one that said it had started recently. I'm guessing maybe my mom had said that it started recently, and that's why that was written on the last one. It says self-destruction has been worse for the last 4 months, which that I found really interesting. So that would have been like starting in February of my 8th grade year. I don't particularly know why it would have been worse. Summary from the session, it says she couldn't tell me what happened, but could write a letter. So this aligns with my memory. I remember I thought that the first time he knew what had happened to me was when I wrote him that letter. Anything that was in the first 2, I don't know how he got that. I assume that must have been through my mom. She is quite self-destructive and quite alone and is begging for someone to comfort her. She needs her mom, sister, someone in the family to get it and to respond appropriately. Says very depressed, will speak to mom about a referral to a psychiatrist. Mentions that once school is out for the year, to consider seeing me twice a week instead of once a week. Something I thought was really interesting is it says, we'll see alone next week and then split the session, which like that did not happen. He never met with my mom after this first time. So I wonder if he changed his mind on that, or if he tried to get her to do that and she declined, or what happened there. But that was really interesting to me. I have more, and I think I'll share more of these in the future, but I'll stop there for now.